Alright, settle in if you can. Grab a cuppa or whatever you're doing right now. Perhaps you're on the commute or unwinding after a long day. Take a moment to just tell me, where are you watching or listening from and what time is it there? I'm truly curious. Now let's transport you. The year is 1870. You're in Victorian England, a place of gas lamps and horse-drawn carriages, of grand societal pronouncements and dark, unspoken secrets. Forget everything else for a moment because you're about to embark on a journey. You feel the hard jolts of the carriage, a relentless, nagging tremor that rattles through your very bones. The wooden bench beneath you offers no comfort, each bump of the uneven road sending a fresh thud up your spine. A damp chill seeps in from the gaps around the windows, an unwelcome guest in the already stale air that smells faintly of horse and old leather. You pull your threadbare shawl tighter, the coarse wool doing little to ward off the insidious cold that has settled deep within your chest. Through the grime-streaked glass, the fading light of the afternoon paints the passing countryside in muted greys and browns. Trees, once vibrant with summer life, now stand skeletal against a bruised sky, their bare branches clawing at the heavens. The rhythmic clatter of hooves on the muddy track and the groan of the carriage wheels are the only sounds, a hypnotic, unsettling lullaby that seems to usher you further and further away from anything familiar. You glance across at the silent figure slumped opposite you, their face obscured by the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat. They offer no words, no comfort, just a shared, heavy silence that presses in closer than the carriage walls. A knot of apprehension tightens in your gut. Your breath catches, shallow and quick, as you try to make sense of this unsettling journey, this forced march into the unknown. There's a distinct metallic taste on your tongue, perhaps from fear or just the stale air. Then through a sudden break in the trees, it appears, not a grand country estate nor a welcoming inn, but something far more imposing, far more ominous. It's a building of formidable grey stone, immense and sprawling, silhouetted against the dying light. High walls seem to rise directly from the earth, devoid of windows on the lower levels, giving the impression of an unyielding fortress. Its facade is stark, austere, almost aggressively plain, yet it radiates a chilling presence that makes the air around you feel even colder. The carriage slows, the rhythmic clopping of hooves now a hesitant, final cadence. You see iron gates, heavy and black, slowly swinging inwards as you approach. This isn't just a destination, it's an absolute frontier. As you draw closer, the sheer scale of the place dominates your vision. Tiny, grimy windows peer out from the upper floors like vacant eyes, offering no hint of the life or lack thereof within. A profound sense of isolation washes over you. You realize with a chilling certainty that this journey has just begun, and the facade you now face is merely the gateway to something much, much deeper. Sometimes the body takes us to places the mind desperately tries to avoid, leaving us to simply observe where we've ended up. The carriage rolls to a final, grating halt, the horses snorting, their breath pluming white in the chill air, a faint cloud dissipating into the oppressive gloom. Before you can even process the sudden quiet, there's a deafening metallic clang that reverberates through the very bones of the carriage, making you jump violently, your heart leaping into your throat. It's the gate. The immense iron gates you saw moments ago are now closed, a final, unyielding barrier between you and the world you once knew. Locked, the sound echoes, a hollow, chilling resonance bouncing off the high stone walls of the courtyard, sealing off any hope of easy retreat, any casual departure from this grim, forbidding place. That sound doesn't just cut through the air, it cuts through you, a cold, sharp blade severing your last fragile threads to the outside world, leaving you exposed and utterly alone. A figure, gaunt and dressed in a severe dark grey uniform, appears at the carriage door, their movements stiff and unhurried. Their face is a mask of utter indifference, etched with a peculiar weariness, their eyes utterly devoid of warmth as they gesture curtly, almost impatiently for you to alight. There's no offer of assistance, no soft word, just an expectation to comply. The air outside is sharper, biting at your exposed skin, and it carries a distinct, unsettling tang, a sickly sweet scent of carbolic mixed with something else, something cloying and indefinable that catches unpleasantly in your throat. It's the unmistakable smell of institutionalization, of sickness, or merely of too many lives confined in too small a space, of secrets and disinfectant trying to mask them. You step down onto damp, uneven flagstones, the cold seeping through your thin boots instantly, reaching your toes with a bitter, unwelcome chill. You find yourself in a vast, grey quadrangle, surrounded on all sides by the imposing, windowless lower walls of the asylum. The building looms over you, a silent, stony giant. The sky above is a perpetually overcast sheet, a bleak canvas reflecting the grimness of the stones below, offering no solace, no hint of sun or brightness. Other figures moving with a strange, shuffling gait are faintly visible through distant, barred windows high above, their movements like restless, trapped shadows, glimpsed only briefly before they disappear. There's no sound of birdsong here, just the distant, muffled cries that seem to filter through thick walls and the ever-present, low hum of a building that breathes only sighs, a living entity made of stone and suffering. A hand, surprisingly strong and unyielding, takes your arm, guiding you forward without a word, without even a glance, pressing you onwards. It's not a comforting touch, it's a directing one, firm and impersonal, as if you were merely an object to be moved, a parcel delivered. You inhale deeply, attempting to steady your frayed nerves, to find some air untainted by the oppressive atmosphere that seems to cling to every stone, every shadow, but it's no use. The very air itself feels heavy, thick with the unvoiced anxieties and suppressed sorrows of countless souls. It settles in your lungs, cold and suffocating, and for the first time you truly feel the chilling weight of despair, a tangible presence that clamps down on your chest, stealing your breath and any semblance of hope. It's the stark, brutal realization that you are no longer in control, that your journey has become a destination from which there may be no return. And you wonder, what exactly does a human soul do when it finds itself so utterly, irrevocably caged? You're ushered down a long, dimly lit corridor, the heavy footsteps of the attendant echoing on the cold stone floor, a constant, unavoidable presence just behind your shoulder. The air here is even colder than the courtyard, carrying a new, sharper scent, old dampness and something metallic, a smell that seems to cling to the rough-hewn walls and seep into your lungs. You're abruptly propelled into a small, windowless room, sparse and cold, with only a wooden stool and a basin. The attendant says nothing, their face a blank, stony mask, but their gaze is fixed, unwavering, a silent, powerful command that brooks no argument. You understand instinctively what's expected. Your hands, stiff and clumsy from the journey, fumble with the delicate fastenings of your own clothes, the buttons of your traveling dress, the laces of your boots, the familiar weight of your shawl. But you're not given the luxury of being delicate. Strong, impatient hands, rough and unyielding, reach in, tugging at fabric, tearing at resistant buttons, stripping away each familiar layer with a startling, brutal efficiency that leaves you gasping, breathless, a profound sense of violation washing over you. The sudden, shocking rush of cold air against your now exposed skin is a cruel, icy embrace that makes you shiver uncontrollably, a tremor starting deep in your bones. There's a visceral, burning shame as your personal garments, each a cherished thread of your former life, are unceremoniously pulled away, dropped onto a growing heap on the floor like so many discarded rags. Your body feels utterly exposed, vulnerable not just to the biting cold, but to an invisible, pervasive, judging gaze that seems to strip you bare of all worth. You watch as your old life, your identity, is reduced to a crumpled pile. Then, with the same brisk, impersonal movements, you're handed a new set of clothes. Not soft linen or comforting wool, but a coarse, heavy uniform of dull, unflattering grey fabric. It smells faintly of something industrial, of lye and stale institutional air, utterly alien. The material is rough against your fingertips, almost abrasive, each thread feeling like a tiny barb. You pull on the simple shift, then the outer dress, the fabric stiff and unyielding, clinging in all the wrong places. The seams, thick and poorly finished, scratch relentlessly at your skin, particularly around your neck, wrists and shoulders. It feels alien, ill-fitting, a crude, rough cage enclosing your body. Almost immediately, a deep, persistent itch begins to bloom across your shoulders and back, a subtle but relentless irritation that you can't quite pinpoint, yet it's undeniably there beneath the coarse cloth. It's more than just physical discomfort, it's a profound psychological torment, a rough new skin you're forced to wear, one that chafes not only your body but your very spirit. As you stand there, reluctantly shrugging into this uncomfortable new identity, you catch a fleeting, horrifying glimpse of your reflection in a tiny, cracked mirror secured high on the wall. The person looking back is almost unrecognizable. Your hair, once carefully pinned, is now disheveled, your eyes wide and sunken with a fear and exhaustion that weren't there before, and draped in this stark, unforgiving uniform, you realize with a crushing certainty that you've been stripped of more than just your clothes. You've been stripped of your very self, your individuality, your place in the world. how quickly the world can chip away at who you are, leaving behind only an echoing, hollowed-out shell, itching with a nameless discontent. You're steered down another silent corridor, the rough grey uniform clinging uncomfortably, its itch now a persistent companion. This time the destination is a smaller chamber, stark and antiseptic, where the air hums with a sterile chill that bites at your exposed hands. The scent of carbolic acid is potent here, sharp and unforgiving, scraping at the back of your throat. A stout, formidable woman in a starched white cap stands by a wooden table, her face a rigid mask, holding an array of cold, gleaming instruments. This is no gentle assessment, this is a clinical appraisal. She gestures not with warmth but with an absolute unyielding authority for you to take a seat on a hard, unpadded bench. The wood is cold beneath your coarse uniform, transferring its chill directly to your skin. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, move over you, scrutinizing every detail with an unnerving, almost dismissive intensity, as if you're merely an exhibit on display. She pulls out a length of smooth, dark wood with a silver cap, a thermometer, and presses it under your tongue, the unfamiliar, cold metal feeling invasive and alien. You instinctively recoil, but her grip is firm, leaving no room for protest. Next, a cold, polished bell of a stethoscope is placed firmly against your chest, then your back. You feel its icy weight through the thin, rough fabric, a shocking contrast to your body's warmth. She listens, her head tilted, her expression utterly detached, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond you, as if listening to something far more interesting than the beat of your own frightened heart. Her fingers, strong and strangely indifferent, press against your wrist, taking your pulse with a methodical, unfeeling precision. Every touch is a probe, every glance a measure, reducing you to a collection of symptoms, a medical curiosity, rather than a living, feeling person. She then turns to a heavy, leather-bound ledger lying open on the table. The scratch of her pen across the page fills the silence, a harsh, grating sound that drills into your ears. She writes methodically, without ever meeting your gaze, without a single question directed at you. There's no request for your name, no query about your feelings, no acknowledgement of your presence as an individual. You hear a low murmur from an attendant beside her, a number, a designation, not a name, spoken softly, and then another scratch of the pen marking your entry. It's in that moment, as you watch her ink a new line into the ledger, that you realize your identity, your very essence, has been reduced to a statistic, a case, a mere set of observations. Your name, your history, your personhood, they're not relevant here. You are just another body, another mind to be categorized, labeled and filed away. When your name is no longer spoken, when your story is no longer heard, how much of yourself is truly left? How much can you hold onto when the world actively tries to erase you? The cold, unfeeling examination is over, but the unsettling journey isn't. You're led further, through another labyrinthine passage, the sound of your own rough uniform chafing against itself, the loudest noise in the sterile silence. Then suddenly a new sound begins to seep through the thick, imposing door ahead, a strange, low hum like a distant, disturbed beehive. It grows steadily, becoming clearer, more distinct as you approach. It's a sound that makes the fine hairs on your arms stand on end, a collective, unsettling murmur that hints at countless presences. The heavy door creaks open with a groan that seems to echo the very weariness of the building, revealing a vast, cavernous room. The air that rushes out is heavy, stagnant, carrying a bewildering mix of smells, unwashed bodies, stale disinfectant, something medicinal, and an underlying, pervasive odor of human desperation. It hits you like a physical blow, a sudden suffocating wave that makes you instinctively pull back, a wave you can almost taste. This is the communal ward. It's a sprawling space, lit by a few dim, flickering gas lamps that cast long, dancing shadows, making the room feel even larger and more disorienting. Row upon row of narrow, iron-framed beds stretch out before you, each one occupied by a figure, some sitting upright staring blankly ahead, others huddled under thin blankets, their forms barely discernible in the gloom. The walls are a bare, institutional grey, peeling in places, reflecting no comfort, offering no solace. The low hum you heard outside is now a powerful, hypnotic drone, a constant, pervasive presence that fills every corner of the vast room. It's a chorus of sound, utterly overwhelming, composed of countless individual noises that blend into a single, unsettling symphony. You distinguish the low, rhythmic moaning of one woman, the sudden, sharp intake of breath from another, a continuous, almost tuneless humming from a corner, and most chillingly, the soft, persistent sound of weeping, like rain on a windowpane coming from somewhere in the shadows. Each sound is a lonely note in a cacophony of quiet anguish. You try to focus to pick out a single voice, a single face, but it's impossible. The sheer number of lost souls, each consumed by their own private world of pain or delusion, creates a powerful, almost tangible sense of collective despair. Their eyes, when you catch them, are distant, unfocused, or strangely intense, holding depths of suffering that you can only begin to fathom. A few turn their heads slowly, their gaze lingering on you for a moment before drifting away, as if your presence is merely another fleeting shadow in their endless internal landscapes. The sheer scale of it, the unending hum of human fragility, presses in on you, closing off the air, stealing your breath. It's a brutal, visceral assault on your senses, a chilling testament to the fragility of the human mind and the profound, isolating power of suffering. You realize with a shiver that has nothing to do with the cold, that sanity itself is a delicate thing, easily fractured, and the sounds of this ward are the very echoes of those shattered pieces. The cold, persistent itch of the coarse uniform is your constant companion, even in the deepest hours of the night. You lie on the narrow cot, the thin mattress offering scant comfort against the hard frame, listening. The vast communal ward, usually a low, hypnotic drone of restless murmurs and suppressed sighs, has settled into a fractured quiet. It's not a true silence, not the comforting hush of a peaceful night. Instead, it's a mosaic of fragmented sounds. The faint, irregular creak of a bedspring from across the room, the soft, rhythmic scrape of a foot against the floor, a shallow cough somewhere near, and the slow, heavy breathing of bodies confined. Each sound, usually lost in the day's cacophony, now stands out in sharp relief, amplifying the pervasive sense of unease that never quite leaves this place. You're trying to find a flicker of rest, your eyes pressed shut against the oppressive darkness, but your mind races, unable to escape the relentless hum of anxiety that has become a permanent fixture in your thoughts. The air is still heavy, thick with that familiar, cloying scent of carbolic and stale humanity, even as the gas lamps have been turned down to mere embers, casting long, wavering shadows that dance like phantoms on the distant walls. You feel the cold seep into your bones, a deeper, more profound chill than just the temperature, a cold that whispers of isolation and endless waiting hours. Suddenly, without warning, it tears through the fractured quiet. A sound so raw, so utterly bereft, that it rips through the fabric of the night, piercing the dense air like a shard of ice. It's a shriek, a piercing, desperate, gut-wrenching shriek that rises from the far end of the ward, not human in its clarity, but a primal, unbridled cry of pure, unadulterated terror and anguish. It echoes off the high ceilings, bouncing from wall to wall, vibrating in your very chest, freezing the blood in your veins. Your body jolts upright, a gasp catching in your throat, your heart hammering against your ribs with a frantic, desperate rhythm. Then, just as abruptly as it began, it stops. The shriek is gone, vanished. The sound simply ceases to exist, cut short, leaving an almost physical void in its wake. The immediate aftermath is a breathless, terrifying stillness that descends upon the ward, even heavier, even more profound than before. Every subtle sound, every rustle, every breath seems to have been swallowed by the abrupt cessation of that agonized cry. No one stirs, no attendant rushes to investigate. The dim forms in their beds remain still, frozen like statues cast in fear or apathy. You strain your ears, desperately listening for any continuation, any movement, any sign of life from where the shriek erupted, but there is nothing. Just the thick, suffocating blanket of silence. It's a silence that feels heavier than any sound, a silence that screams of unspoken horrors, of a suffering so immense it defies utterance. It tells you that this is not an unusual event, that such cries are common, expected, and that no one here is coming to save anyone. The sheer weight of that collective indifference, layered upon the echoing memory of the shriek, presses down on you, crushing. You lie back, trembling, staring into the impenetrable darkness of the ward, and you understand with a chilling certainty that some silences are far more terrifying than any scream, because they speak of a world where suffering is simply endured, unseen and unheard, until it fades into nothingness. The morning light, if you can even call it that, filters weakly through the high, barred windows of the communal ward, painting the grey walls in a slightly less oppressive hue. It brings no warmth, no cheer, only a faint illumination to the same faces, the same silent suffering. Your stomach, hollow and aching, has been gnawing at you since the early hours, a persistent, uncomfortable reminder of the body's simple, undeniable needs. The air, still thick with its peculiar blend of stale disinfectant and unidentifiable organic smells, seems to grow heavier with the promise of the day's first meal. Then, a new sound cuts through the ward's perpetual hum. The rhythmic clanking of metal against metal growing louder as an attendant pushes a heavy trolley through the aisle. The smell that accompanies it is unmistakable, a faint, sickly sweet odor reminiscent of boiled oats and old water, with an undertone of something faintly metallic. It's a scent that promises sustenance but delivers little appeal. A dented pewter bowl is placed before you on the small, scratched wooden bedside table. Inside, a thin, greyish gruel shimmers dully, its surface barely disturbed. It's more water than substance, a watery, insipid liquid with a few pale, almost translucent flecks suspended within it. You lift the bowl, its metal cool against your palm, and bring it cautiously to your lips. The first taste is bland, utterly devoid of flavor, yet there's a distinct, unwelcome metallic tang that lingers on your tongue, almost as if you're tasting the bowl itself. It's barely warm, tepid, offering no comfort as it slides down your throat, leaving a dull ache in your empty stomach rather than any sense of satisfaction. Each spoonful feels less like nourishment and more like a required ritual, a forced ingestion of something designed only to keep you barely functioning. Alongside the gruel, a small, uneven piece of bread is presented. It's dense and pale, with a slightly greenish tint in places, already feeling hard and unyielding to the touch. You tear off a small portion, the crumbly texture dry against your fingers, and bring it to your mouth. The first bite confirms your suspicion. It's stale, chewy, almost like sawdust, and utterly flavorless. You have to chew deliberately, working your jaw to break down the fibrous mass, forcing it down with gulps of the metallic gruel. It scrapes against your palate, leaving your mouth feeling even drier, more parched than before. You glance around the ward, observing the others. Some consume their meager portions with a desperate, animalistic hunger, shoveling it down without thought. Others simply stare at their bowls, unmoving, the gruel sitting untouched, reflecting their vacant, distant gazes. Their faces, gaunt and drawn, mirror the profound lack of sustenance on offer. Your own hunger, though sharp, battles with a rising wave of revulsion. This isn't food that nourishes, it's food that merely fills, and even then barely. It's a daily reminder of your diminished status, of the raw, unadorned existence you now inhabit. How can the body thrive when the spirit is starved, and the only nourishment offered is a bitter reminder of everything you've lost? Despite the lukewarm gruel and the stale bread, the gnawing ache in your stomach persists, a dull, insistent clamor that drowns out the ward's low hum. It's not just hunger for food. It's a hunger for substance, for warmth, for something real. You find yourself watching the others, not with pity, but with a sharp, almost animalistic intensity, observing their subtle movements, their guarded glances. You notice the way a few exchange quick, furtive looks, their eyes darting towards the indifferent attendants, a silent language of need and clandestine opportunity. The air, thick with its usual institutional smells, now seems to carry a faint, earthy aroma hinting at something raw, something from outside these walls. From the corner of your eye, you catch the gaze of a woman several beds down, her face drawn and shadowed, but her eyes hold a spark of something familiar, a shared, unspoken desperation. She gives a barely perceptible nod, her head tilting towards her cupped hands, shielded from view by the thin blanket draped over her lap. It's a silent invitation, a flicker of an unspoken pact in this desolate landscape. Your heart quickens, a fragile hope blossoming amidst the pervasive despair. You return her gaze, a silent question passing between you, then a subtle affirmative shift of your own body, acknowledging the clandestine offering. You wait, the seconds stretching into an eternity, until the attendants' heavy footsteps recede down the aisle, their attention momentarily diverted. Then, swiftly, almost without a sound, the woman shuffles closer to your cot. Her hand extends, not quite touching yours, but offering a small, lumpy object wrapped in a torn piece of cloth. It feels surprisingly solid, warm, and real. You take it, your fingers brushing hers for a fleeting moment, a contact more human than anything you've experienced since arriving. She gives a quick, knowing glance, a flicker of understanding passing between you, then retreats just as silently, melting back into her own isolated corner of the ward. You unwrap your treasure with trembling fingers, the coarse cloth revealing a single, unpeeled potato. It's small, unassuming, with patches of dark earth still clinging to its skin, a powerful, earthy scent rising from its surface. It's not cooked, not prepared, just raw and simple, yet it feels like the most luxurious feast you could ever imagine. You bring it to your lips, tasting the gritty soil, then bite into it. The texture is firm, slightly sweet, with a satisfying, almost shocking earthiness that explodes on your tongue. It's dense, starchy, a stark contrast to the watery gruel, a true bite of the world outside of life itself. Each chew is deliberate, savored, a small, defiant act against the crushing monotony. The simple, raw taste is like a jolt, a reminder of what sustenance truly feels like. In that moment, a profound truth settles in your gut. True hunger makes us appreciate the simplest things. It forces us to seek out any scrap of comfort, to form silent alliances just to survive another day. The hunger of the body, it turns out, can make the mind incredibly resourceful, even in the depths of despair. The attendant's firm, unyielding grip guides you once more, pulling you from the communal ward, away from the unsettling chorus of quiet anguish. Now, the overwhelming sensory input is one of relentless, sterile repetition. Your feet, already aching from the hard flagstones, begin a slow, trudging rhythm along endless corridors. Each step feels strangely heavy, almost muffled by the oppressive air, yet the sound echoes faintly ahead and behind, a ghostly accompaniment to your forced march. The air itself is thin and cold, a sharper, more metallic tang now mingling with the ever-present carbolic, pricking at the back of your nose, creating a dry, uncomfortable sensation in your mouth. You're walking through a maze. The walls are uniformly plastered in a dull, institutional beige, or perhaps a faded grey, so utterly devoid of character that they seem to absorb all light and warmth. They stretch into a dizzying perspective ahead of you, curving slightly, then straightening, then turning again, each twist and turn revealing only more of the same. There are no paintings, no windows offering a glimpse of the outside world, no distinguishing marks, nothing to break the monotonous visual drone. It feels like walking inside a vast, featureless box. And then there are the doors, identical, row upon row of heavy, dark wooden doors, each painted the same drab, uniform color, each with the same small, square peephole at eye level, each with the same dull brass handle, tarnished with countless touches. They line both sides of the corridors, stretching as far as the eye can see, creating a bewildering, disorienting geometry that feels designed to confuse, to trap. You glance at them trying to find a pattern, a unique scratch, a distinguishing feature, but there is none. Each one is a twin to the last and the next. The constant, rhythmic click of the attendant's heavy keys, jingling softly at their hip, is the only sound that gives these silent, impassive portals any sense of purpose. You feel a profound, disquieting sense of disorientation beginning to settle in. How long have you been walking? Which way did you come? Every corner, every turn feels exactly like the last, blurring the passage of time and direction. Your sense of place dissolves, becoming fluid and uncertain. The walls seem to press in closer, the doors multiply, stretching into an infinite perspective, as if you're trapped in a nightmare loop, constantly moving but never truly arriving. The sheer lack of individual markers of anything to orient yourself by starts to erode your own internal map, making the outside world seem increasingly distant, increasingly irrelevant. The relentless monotony isn't just a visual assault, it's a psychological one, designed to break down your internal compass, to strip away any remaining sense of agency or self. You realize with a chilling certainty that in a place where every door looks the same, and every path leads to another identical path, it's not just your physical freedom that's being curtailed. It's your very ability to navigate, to remember, to define your own space that is slowly, subtly being erased. And you wonder what happens when you no longer know where you are or even where you've come from. The incessant rhythm of the corridors finally breaks. You're guided into a smaller room, more cell than chamber, yet it holds a single high window. The air here, though still stale, carries a faint ghost of an outside breeze. You're drawn to it, compelled by an instinctual ache for light, for connection beyond these suffocating walls. Your fingers brush the cold, grimy glass, thick with years of accumulated dust. Heavy metal bars, stark and unforgiving, crisscross the pane, distorting the world. You press your face close, peering through the smudged glass and ironwork, the chill seeping into your forehead. Your breath fogs the pane, then clears, revealing a fragment of life. And what a world it is! Far below, beyond the grey stone, a sliver of cobbled street unfolds. Children play, their distant, high-pitched laughter carried faintly on the wind, a sound so alien it makes your chest ache. A hawker's cart rattles past, its owner's cries barely audible yet vivid. You spot a woman in a bright blue dress pulling a small child disappearing around a corner. A dog barks. Weak sunlight catches brickwork, warms distant leaves. It's a fleeting tableau, ordinary life, vibrant and unburdened, utterly oblivious to the silent suffering within. This sight is a brutal contrast. It's a painful portrait of the life you once knew, continuing its joyous, oblivious way without you. Each small detail, a distant call, a child at play, pierces you with fresh longing, a sharp pang of what's irrevocably lost. You realize that while trapped, life outside carries on, vibrant and indifferent. It's a painful truth to witness the world move on, knowing you are a mere ghost to its unstoppable dance. What does it mean to be alive when your life has been quietly, completely excised from the living world? You're led into another small room, this one slightly less bleak than the last, but filled with a new oppressive weight. The air here holds the faint, metallic scent of iron gall ink and old paper, mixed with the ever-present, biting smell of carbolic. It's a scent that speaks of bureaucracy and unfeeling assessment. You're pushed gently towards a stiff wooden chair, its polished surface cold against your bare arms, and you sit, your coarse uniform rustling, a stark contrast to the quiet dignity of the space. Behind a large, imposing mahogany desk sits a man, the doctor. He is impeccably dressed, his starched white collar a sharp, almost blinding contrast to his dark, severe suit. His face, etched with lines of perpetual seriousness, offers no hint of warmth or compassion. He doesn't greet you, doesn't offer a comforting word, simply fixes you with a gaze that feels like a physical examination in itself. His eyes, keen and piercing, sweep over you, a slow, methodical appraisal that feels utterly invasive, stripping you bare not of clothes, but of any remaining shred of privacy or dignity. You feel the weight of that gaze, a heavy, dispassionate scrutiny that seems to peer deep beneath your skin, dissecting your every tremor, every slight shift in your expression. He holds a pen poised over a vast, open ledger, its pages filled with neat, precise script, a record of countless other lives meticulously documented, categorized, and judged. He doesn't ask you any questions, doesn't invite you to speak. Your story, your truth seems utterly irrelevant. He merely observes, his brow furrowed in a slight, almost imperceptible frown, as if confirming a preordained conclusion. The silence in the room stretches, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the distant, muffled sounds of the asylum and the soft rustle of his own clothes as he adjusts slightly. It feels like an eternity, yet the entire process lasts mere seconds. Then, without a word, his gaze finally breaks from yours. He dips his pen into an inkwell, the tiny splash a sharp sound in the quiet, and with a decisive, almost brutal flick of his wrist, he inscribes something onto the page. You can't see the words, but you feel the indelible mark being made, a final pronouncement sealing your fate. The scratch of his pen is a sharp, final statement, a sentence written in ink, not spoken aloud. The gesture is so swift, so devoid of human connection, yet it carries the crushing weight of an absolute diagnosis. You realize with a chilling certainty that your entire being has been reduced to a few swift strokes of a pen, your life condensed into a label. How quickly one's existence can be redefined, imprisoned by a glance and a few words on paper, leaving you to contend with the profound, devastating silence that follows a judgment you never heard, but keenly felt. The sharp, metallic scent of iron gall ink still hangs in the air, mingling with the stale carbolic. You sit rigidly on the uncomfortable wooden chair, your coarse uniform chafing against your skin, your breath shallow. Your heart still pounds from the doctor's dismissive gaze, a silent internal clamor against the oppressive quiet of the room. He remains behind his formidable desk, his presence cold and unyielding. You watch transfixed as his gloved fingers push aside the large ledger, revealing a fresh sheet of paper, a printed form, its official heading in bold, black type, stark against the cream parchment. This is clearly a different, more significant document. The paper itself feels heavy with unspoken authority, its blank spaces awaiting final pronouncements. You can almost feel the chill emanating from it. He dips his pen once more, the tiny, almost imperceptible scrape of nib against glass as it collects a fresh charge of ink. Then, with a deliberate, slow movement, his hand descends to the page. The silence in the room stretches taut, thick with anticipation, broken only by the rasping sound that follows. Scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound of his pen moving across the committal form is shockingly loud in the profound stillness. It's a precise, methodical sound, each stroke of the nib laying down words you cannot read, but whose meaning you feel with an almost physical ache. It's a sound that doesn't just fill the air. It carves itself into your very being, a permanent mark being made not on paper but on your life itself. Each scratch is a hammer blow, sealing your fate, reducing your existence to lines of bureaucratic script. You find yourself leaning forward imperceptibly, desperate to see, to understand, but his body blocks the view, a dark, impenetrable barrier between you and your written destiny. You feel a profound sense of helplessness, a chilling realization that your entire future is being decided in these few silent moments by a hand utterly detached from your reality, utterly indifferent to your pleas. Your voice, your protests, your very being, they hold no power here. The pen moves with an unwavering, relentless rhythm, completing phrases, checking boxes, signing away your autonomy with cold, dispassionate efficiency. There's no hesitation, no doubt in his movements, just the grim, unwavering certainty of a man performing a necessary, albeit brutal, duty. Finally, with a decisive flourish, he lifts the pen. The scratching ceases, leaving behind an echoing silence that feels heavier, more absolute than before. He places the signed form gently onto a pile of others, their identical crispness, a testament to countless lives similarly defined and confined. In that moment, a profound and terrifying truth settles deep within you. It is not the words themselves, but the act of writing them, of committing them to paper, that truly seals your fate. A life once vibrant and free can be so utterly diminished, reduced to a few bureaucratic marks, held captive by the simple, unyielding power of ink and paper. The doctor's pen has signed your fate, and now the consequences arrive. You're guided, or rather propelled, into a small, damp chamber that smells overpoweringly of wet stone and a sickly sweet, almost sugary disinfectant, far more potent than the carbolic. Your coarse uniform is quickly, roughly removed, leaving your skin exposed once more to the biting chill that seems to emanate from the very walls. The air prickles your bare flesh, raising goosebumps. In the center of the room stands a large, deep tub, old and stained, made of metal or porcelain, its edges chipped and discolored. Steam does not rise from it. Instead, the surface of the water within is still, almost glassy and disturbingly dark. You catch a glimpse of large chunks of ice floating lazily, reflecting the dim light like cold, fractured eyes. This isn't a bath for cleansing, this is a bath for shock, for a cure. Your stomach clenches, a wave of nausea rising as you instinctively understand the unspoken command. Rough hands take your arms, strong and unyielding, urging you towards the tub. There's no gentle lowering, no warning. You are pushed forward, your body protesting, resisting, but utterly powerless against their combined force. The moment your feet touch the frigid water, a gasp is torn from your throat, raw and involuntary. The cold is a brutal, overwhelming shock, 1,000 needles plunging into your skin simultaneously. It's an instant, total sensory assault that steals your breath, making your chest seize up painfully tight. You're lowered further, deeper, the icy water creeping relentlessly up your legs, across your belly until it reaches your chest. Your whole body spasms, a violent, uncontrollable shiver racking through you, making your teeth chatter so hard it hurts. It's a desperate fight for air, your lungs instinctively contracting against the suffocating cold, your heart pounding a frantic, irregular rhythm against your ribs. Your skin turns instantly mottled, a sickly blue-white, every pore screaming in protest. The chill sears, a burning pain that seems to penetrate directly to your bones, making your muscles lock. Your head is kept above the surface, but the feeling is that of drowning, of being suffocated by an invisible, crushing weight. The ice chunks bump against your bare skin, sharp and unforgiving, each touch a fresh jolt of agony. You try to speak, to cry out, but only a choked, guttural sound escapes, lost in the overwhelming physical shock. Your vision blurs, the room spinning around you, your mind struggling to grasp onto any coherent thought amidst the onslaught. This isn't a treatment, it's an ordeal, a brutal assertion of control over your body, designed not to soothe but to break. You wonder, can a body truly be mended by being pushed to the very brink of its endurance, and at what cost to the spirit? The brutal shock of the ice water bath has barely receded from your memory, your body still tingling with a residual, deep-seated cold, when you're again propelled into a new ordeal. This time, the small chamber you enter hits you with a wave of intense, suffocating heat. The air is thick, dense, with a visible swirling steam that instantly fogs your vision and clings to your skin, a humid embrace that feels more like a chokehold. The scent here is a heavy mix of damp stone, something vaguely medicinal, and the unmistakable cloying sweetness of human sweat, already permeating the oppressive atmosphere. Rough hands guide you to a hard, wooden bench, wet and warm from the steam, its surface slick beneath your bare thighs. You sit, the wood's heat soaking into your skin, a stark, almost painful contrast to the recent icy torment. Your lungs immediately protest, the thick hot air feeling like liquid fire as you try to draw a breath. It's a struggle, each inhalation shallow and labored, as if you're trying to breathe underwater. Beads of sweat immediately spring forth, trickling down your temples, stinging your eyes, and plastering strands of hair to your forehead. The steam surrounds you, a living, breathing entity pressing in from all sides. It obscures your view of the room, reducing everything to hazy shapes and blurred outlines. You can just make out other figures, vague forms on similar benches, their heads bowed, their bodies glistening with moisture. They are silent, suffering in unison, their presence adding to the heavy, claustrophobic atmosphere. The only sounds are the rhythmic drip of condensation, the soft hiss of distant pipes, and the increasingly frantic beat of your own heart, thrumming against your ribs like a trapped bird. Your body quickly becomes a furnace, burning from the inside out. Sweat drenches you, plastering your coarse uniform, which was hastily returned to your skin, making the fabric chafe with an insidious irritation. Your head begins to throb, a dull, persistent ache behind your eyes, and a dizzying lightness threatens to overwhelm you. Every nerve ending screams for escape, for a single breath of cool, fresh air, but there is none. This is meant to cleanse, they say, to sweat out the sickness, to purify, but it feels like a slow, deliberate suffocation, a forced boiling of your very essence. The heat becomes unbearable, a relentless pressure that feels as if it's squeezing your thoughts, crushing your spirit. You gasp, trying to clear your throat, but the steam only chokes you further. You realize with a chilling certainty that this isn't about healing, it's about endurance, about pushing the body to its breaking point, under the guise of a cure. And you wonder what exactly is left of a person when their body and mind have been so relentlessly, violently purged of their very self. The chilling aftermath of the Turkish bath leaves you weak, your muscles aching, your head throbbing. The steam has cleared from the small chamber, but the air still feels thick, heavy with the humid scent of sweat and stale institutional disinfectant. You're left feeling utterly drained, exposed, and vulnerable. Then two attendants appear, their faces impassive, carrying a bundle of heavy, unbleached canvas. It's thick, rough, and you can smell the faint, acrid scent of old fabric, of countless other bodies, a smell that clings to the coarse weave. There's no explanation, no preamble, just swift, efficient movements. You're guided firmly but without aggression towards a chair. The canvas is draped over you, heavy and surprisingly cold against your bare arms, which are still slick with sweat. The material feels abrasive, like a sack, as it wraps around your torso. You feel your arms being gently but firmly brought together, crossed tightly over your chest, a position that immediately feels unnatural, restrictive. Then the tightening begins. Straps, thick and made of the same coarse canvas, are pulled taut across your back, binding your arms securely to your body. You feel the unyielding material press against your ribs, compressing your chest, making each breath a conscious effort. It's not just tight, it's an all-encompassing embrace that slowly, deliberately squeezes out any freedom of movement. Your shoulders are forced down, your elbows pinned, your hands rendered useless, locked into an immobile, uncomfortable knot. Buckles click heavy and metallic, fastening the straps with a definitive final sound that echoes in the small room. The canvas is suddenly everywhere, against your skin, under your chin, pressing on your ribs, a rigid, unyielding cocoon. You try to shift to alleviate the pressure, but there is no give, no possibility of escape. Your muscles strain against the fabric, but it holds firm, a silent, powerful assertion of control. You can move your head a little and your legs, though they feel heavy and disconnected. But your upper body, your arms, the very means by which you interact with the world, are now utterly imprisoned. A profound sense of powerlessness washes over you, deeper and more absolute than any you've felt since arriving. It's not just your physical self that is restrained, it's your very will, your capacity to act, to resist, to even gesture. The coarse canvas becomes a constant, irritating presence, a physical manifestation of your complete lack of agency. You try to take a deep breath, but the straitjacket squeezes, making it shallow and unsatisfactory. You realize with a chilling clarity that this is what it means to be utterly, irrevocably contained. Your every impulse to reach, to touch, to defend, to simply be extinguished. And you wonder what can truly be broken when every physical defense is removed, leaving only the mind to contend with its own confinement. The coarse canvas of the straitjacket already binds you, a suffocating second skin that chafes and restricts, but the ordeal isn't over. You're pushed, not walked, into a new, smaller cell. The air here is colder still, stagnant, smelling sharply of aged wood and the persistent clinical tang of institutional disinfectant. Your eyes fall upon an object in the center of the room, dark and formidable in the dim light. A chair. Not a comfortable armchair nor a simple stool, but a heavy, unyielding contraption of dark, unvarnished wood and thick iron bands. It's an instrument designed for a singular, chilling purpose. You feel the pressure of hands on your back guiding you towards it, the coarse canvas of your own restraint scraping against your skin with every forced step. You are positioned, your body manipulated with detached precision, until you are seated firmly in the chair. The wood is hard, unforgiving, cold against the back of your legs, and where your bound arms press against the sides. Almost immediately, thick leather straps, surprisingly cold and stiff, appear. One is drawn tightly across your chest, just above your already confined arms, cinching you back against the unyielding wood. Buckles click, heavy and metallic, echoing like pronouncements in the quiet room. Another strap, even wider, is brought across your lap, pinning your hips and upper thighs, pressing you down into the seat. You feel the circulation in your legs begin to protest, a dull ache starting to spread. Your legs, too, are secured. Firm bands of leather wrap around your ankles, fastening them to the chair's sturdy legs. The sensation is one of profound, absolute immobilization. You try to shift even just an inch to find some fraction of comfort, some minute relief from the relentless pressure, but there is no give. The chair holds you fast, a rigid, unyielding cage from which there is no physical escape. Your head, though free to move, feels heavy, disembodied from the utterly confined torso. You can crane your neck, turn your gaze, but your body is a prisoner. The straitjacket ensures your arms are useless, crossed tightly over your chest, but now the chair eradicates any movement from your torso and lower limbs. Each breath becomes a shallow, deliberate act, the straps around your chest making deep inhalation a painful impossibility. Your muscles, unused to such extreme stillness, begin to cramp, a slow, insistent ache blooming in your back and shoulders. The silence that descends is heavy, broken only by the frantic thump of your own heart and the increasingly labored sound of your breathing. There is nothing to see but the drab walls, nothing to do but exist in this profound state of physical captivity. Time, which once flowed in a rhythm of days and nights, of tasks and moments, now stretches out, vast and empty, an endless oppressive expanse. Every second becomes an enemy, each tick of an imaginary clock a torturous elongation of your suffering. You feel the minutes crawling, then the hours, a relentless, suffocating tide. In this state of utter helplessness, where the body is wholly imprisoned, you realize that the truest battle begins not in the physical world, but within the confines of your own mind, as time itself becomes the most relentless tormentor. And you wonder, how long can a spirit endure when time ceases to be a journey and becomes an inescapable, unchanging wall? Still bound tightly in the restraint chair, the rough canvas chafing at your skin, you're left with little more than your senses heightened and raw. Your body is a cage, but your ears are still free, acutely aware of every subtle shift in the oppressive quiet of the cell. The air is cold and stale, thick with the lingering scent of disinfectant and old wood, but beneath it you begin to perceive something else, something rhythmic and heavy. Distant at first, a faint, almost imperceptible thud-thud. It's a sound that barely registers, blending with the low, internal hum of the asylum. But then it grows, slowly, steadily, gaining weight and definition. Thud, thud, thud. It's the distinct, unmistakable sound of heavy boots on hard stone approaching. Each step resonates not just through the corridor, but directly into your skull, a percussive rhythm of unwavering authority. Your heart, already a frantic drum against your bound chest, picks up its pace, thrumming a frantic counterpoint to the approaching footsteps. The sound fills the air, eclipsing all other senses, becoming the sole focus of your awareness. It's measured, unhurried, yet utterly relentless, betraying no haste, no emotion, just a grim, inevitable progress. You can almost feel the vibrations traveling through the stone floor, up the legs of the chair, into your own rigid frame. The air itself seems to thicken with the sound, pressing down on you. The footsteps grow louder, clearer, now distinct outside your very door. Thud, thud, they stop. A heavy silence descends, even more terrifying than the approach, leaving you suspended in a breathless void of anticipation. You strain your ears, every fiber of your being alert, waiting. Then, the jingle of keys, a sharp, metallic symphony of power, followed by the scrape of the key in the lock, a grating, final sound that seals your fate once more. The door creaks open with a groan, and the attendant stands framed in the doorway, a dark, imposing silhouette against the dim light of the corridor. Their uniform is stiff, their face an unreadable mask, their gaze sweeping over you without warmth, without malice, simply observation. They say nothing, their presence alone a formidable statement. The smell of starched fabric and institutional order drifts into the cell. Those heavy footsteps, now silent, still echo in your mind, a rhythm of dread that heralds the next unknown. You realize with a chilling clarity that in this place, the most terrifying threats are often silent, preceded only by the methodical, unavoidable approach of heavy, unfeeling boots. The door to your small, cold cell, freshly opened by the attendant's heavy tread, now hangs ajar, revealing a sliver of the dimly lit corridor. You remain utterly immobilized in the restraint chair, the canvas straitjacket a constant, abrasive presence, your body a rigid, aching monument to confinement. The air, already thick with the scent of disinfectant and stale stone, now carries the metallic tang of old iron. Your gaze is drawn, compelled to the source of that metallic scent, to the attendant's hand. From their belt, a heavy, dark ring of iron is produced, laden with an intimidating cluster of keys. They jangle, a harsh, discordant symphony of power and control. Each key is thick, old, and made of blackened iron, glinting faintly in the meager light filtering from the corridor. They clank against each other, a sharp, distinct asterisk clink-clank-clink, echoing in the small, oppressive space, each sound a stark reminder of the countless locks they govern, the countless doors they seal. You watch, your breath catching in your throat, as the attendant's fingers, thick and unhurried, sift through the heavy bunch. There's a deliberate, almost ritualistic quality to their movements, a focused precision as they select one specific key from the many. The jangling becomes a smaller, more focused sound as a single key is isolated, its sharp, metallic edge catching the faint light. It feels as if they are selecting your very fate, deciding your next moment with each casual movement. Then, with a methodical, almost brutal efficiency, the chosen key is inserted into the lock of your cell door. The scrape of metal on metal is a raw, grating sound that vibrates through the very air, through the chair, through your skull. You feel the mechanism engage, a solid, heavy thunk asterisk, followed by the definitive, echoing asterisk click as the bolt slides home. The sound is utterly final, absolute, sealing you in, extinguishing any lingering, fragile hope of an easy exit. It's the sound of a door being locked, not against a threat, but against you, trapping you within these unyielding walls. The attendant then withdraws the key, the metallic jingle returning as it rejoins its brethren on the heavy ring. They offer no glance, no word, just a quiet, almost imperceptible nod to another figure that now stands dimly in the corridor beyond. The door is then pulled shut, the heavy wood thudding softly into its frame, muffling the key's jangle into a distant, receding echo. You're left once more in near silence, the metallic scent and the memory of those clinking keys lingering in the air, a physical manifestation of your captivity. And you realize with a chilling certainty that in this place the keys don't just lock doors. They lock away lives, control destinies, and remind you with every jingle of the absolute power held by those who possess them. How potent a sound can be when it signifies not freedom, but endless, unyielding confinement. The immobilizing grip of the restraint chair and the endless cell walls eventually give way to another forced transition. You're unstrapped, the coarse canvas peeling away from your skin, leaving behind raw, sensitive patches, but the feeling of freedom is fleeting, overshadowed by a new destination. You're led through more corridors, the air growing progressively heavier, warmer, laden with a powerful, almost chemical aroma. You're pushed into an enormous, cavernous room far larger than any you've seen yet in this institution. It's dim, lit by a few high, grime-streaked windows, and filled with a hazy, pervasive steam that hangs in the air like a perpetual fog. The sound here is a low, incessant rumble, the rhythmic thud and clang of unseen machinery, a mechanical heart beating out the endless work of the place. But it's the smell that truly assaults your senses. It's the acrid, biting stench of industrial laundry, strong, cheap soap, boiling fabric, bleach, and the damp, heavy scent of countless unwashed bodies, all mingled into an overwhelming, suffocating cloud that catches in your throat and makes your eyes water. You can almost taste the harsh chemicals on your tongue. You're directed with a brisk, unyielding hand on your shoulder towards a long, communal wooden bench. It stretches across the room, already occupied by dozens of silent figures in identical grey uniforms, their heads bowed over mounds of damp, rough linen. The bench itself is old, dark with age and constant use. You lower yourself onto it, the unvarnished wood surprisingly cold and rough against the back of your legs, through your thin uniform. Almost immediately you feel it. The sharp, tiny pricks of rough splinters digging into your skin, 1,000 tiny irritations that you can't shift or rub away. They're a constant, nagging discomfort, burrowing into your flesh with every slight movement. You glance at the figures beside you. Their faces are uniformly drawn, grey with exhaustion and the suffocating steam, their hands calloused and raw from endless scrubbing and folding. They work with a slow, mechanical rhythm, their movements devoid of expression, their eyes vacant, reflecting the monotonous task. The steam continues to swirl, carrying its potent stench, clinging to your uniform, seeping into your hair, making your skin feel perpetually clammy and slick. The rough splinters and the pervasive, cloying smell combine into a singular, overwhelming sensory assault. It's a physical manifestation of your new reality, forced labor, endless and unrewarding, where even the most basic act of sitting brings discomfort, and the air itself is a constant, nauseating reminder of the grim, industrial nature of your existence. You realize with a heavy heart that this isn't just a place of confinement, it's a place of relentless, soul-crushing toil, where even the air you breathe is a testament to suffering. And you wonder what happens to the human spirit when its entire existence is reduced to nothing more than raw sensory endurance and endless, unfeeling labor. The stifling steam and chemical stench of the laundry room eventually give way to a different kind of air, a chilling, bracing gust that whips around you as you're led outside. It's still cold, a stark reminder of the English weather, but it smells undeniably cleaner, of wet earth and distant foliage, a welcome relief after the oppressive indoors. Your coarse uniform, still damp in places, feels flimsy against the biting wind. You find yourself in a large, open field, enclosed by the same high stone walls that ring the asylum, but this space feels vastly different. It's a patchwork of ploughed earth, green shoots and muddy pathways, stretching out under a vast grey sky. Other figures in identical uniforms are scattered across the field, moving with slow, methodical efficiency, their backs bent over the soil. They are tilling, sowing, gathering, their silent labor a grim, living tableau. A heavy wooden hoe is thrust into your hands. It's rough, the handle worn smooth in places by countless other grips, but its weight is surprisingly reassuring, a solid, tangible object after so much intangibility. You plunge the hoe into the earth, feeling the immediate, satisfying resistance of the soil. It's cold, damp, and wonderfully alive beneath your clumsy efforts, clinging to the metal blade, then releasing with a soft, sucking sound as you lift it. The smell of freshly turned earth rises, rich and primal, mingling with the crisp, cold air, a stark contrast to the institutional odors you've grown used to. Your fingers, cold and stiff, quickly become numb, then ache from the repetitive grip on the rough wood. Your shoulders burn, your back protests, but there's a strange, almost meditative rhythm to the work. Hoe in, lift, turn, hoe in, lift, turn. The mud splatters onto your rough uniform, a testament to your efforts, a tactile connection to something real, something outside the confines of your own troubled mind. You feel the cold dampness of the earth seeping through your thin boots, chilling your toes, but you barely notice it. Your focus is entirely on the soil, on the physical effort, on the small, tangible progress you make with each swing of the hoe. You glance up, catching the eye of an attendant standing sentinel at the edge of the field, their posture rigid, their gaze unwavering. You know you are being watched, that this labor is not just for the soil, but for control, for an imposed sense of order. Yet for a fleeting moment, as the wind bites at your face and the raw earth yields beneath your hands, there's a strange, almost forgotten sense of purpose. It's a profound duality. The freedom of physical exertion under an open sky, yet the crushing weight of forced servitude. You realize that sometimes the simplest, most grounding acts, like working the earth, can offer a temporary respite from the internal turmoil, even when performed under the watchful, unyielding eye of confinement. It's a bitter taste of freedom, sweetened only by the grit of the soil. The rhythmic drudgery of the farm has given way to the communal dining hall, a vast, echoing space filled with the clang of metal spoons against cheap pewter bowls. The air is thick with the pervasive, unappetizing smell of boiled vegetables, stale broth, and damp institutional linen, a heavy, cloying aroma that seems to cling to your very clothes. You sit on a hard, unforgiving bench, the rough wood digging into your skin even through the coarse uniform, your shoulders still aching from the day's labor. Your own bowl of thin, tasteless soup sits before you, its surface reflecting the dim light of the flickering gas lamps. You lift a spoonful, the lukewarm liquid sliding down your throat, offering scant nourishment, only a momentary suppression of the hunger pangs. Around you, dozens of other figures in identical grey uniforms consume their meagre portions, some with a desperate speed, others with a vacant, detached slowness. The overall sound is a low, unceasing murmur, a hum of muted suffering punctuated by the scraping of cutlery, a stark soundtrack to collective, quiet despair. You lift your gaze, not seeking anything in particular, merely escaping the monotony of your bowl. Across the vast hall, amongst the sea of bowed heads and vacant stares, your eyes meet another pair. She is a woman, perhaps a little older than yourself, her face etched with the same weary resignation that you feel reflected in your own. Her hair, like yours, is pulled back severely, but her eyes, those eyes hold something different. They are not vacant, nor are they wild with delusion. They are alert, knowing, and carry a deep, quiet sorrow that mirrors your own hidden pain. For a fleeting moment, a breath held taut, you share a silent, profound glance. It lasts perhaps a second, but in that shared instant, a world of unspoken understanding passes between you. There's no need for words, no possibility for them, yet you feel it, a recognition. A spark of shared humanity, a silent acknowledgement of the brutal reality of this place, of the indignity, the relentless sorrow. It's a fleeting connection, a fragile thread woven between two isolated souls in a sea of despair. Her eyes hold your gaze, a momentary anchor before they gently, almost imperceptibly, lower back to her untouched meal. The connection breaks, leaving you with a strange, bittersweet ache in your chest. It's a powerful, unsettling reminder that even in the deepest, most isolating confinement, the human spirit instinctively seeks connection, a silent alliance forged in shared experience. And you wonder what raw truth can be communicated without a single word in the stark depths of common suffering. The clamour of the dining hall persists, a dull roar of metal and murmurs, yet the image of that shared glance still resonates, a silent promise hanging in the stale, food-laden air. Your own meal sits before you, growing colder, untouched, as a different kind of hunger stirs within. The heavy scent of boiled greens and damp fabric still clogs your nostrils, but now there's an undercurrent of heightened awareness, a subtle tension you hadn't noticed before. You catch her eye again, the woman from across the hall, her movements almost imperceptible as she leans slightly, a faint shadow passing over her face. Her gaze is a silent invitation, a fleeting question posed across the tables, cutting through the din. You respond instinctively, a minute nod, a barely perceptible shift in your posture acknowledging the unspoken pact. Attendants patrol the aisles, their heavy boots thudding a constant rhythm against the stone floor, their eyes sweeping over the rows of silent diners, a constant threat of detection hanging in the air. You lower your head, feigning interest in your unappetizing gruel, but your senses are acutely attuned to her movements, to the space between you. Slowly, cautiously, she begins to move, a subtle shifting of her body inching closer. Her hand, gnarled and rough from endless toil, reaches out from beneath her coarse uniform, almost brushing the edge of your table. It's a silent, almost invisible offering, shielded from the patrolling eyes by the slight angle of her body. Your own hand, trembling slightly, moves to meet hers, a delicate, furtive exchange in the oppressive environment. Her fingers brush yours, cold and dry, and then a small, hard object is pressed into your palm. You grasp it, pulling your hand back quickly, curling your fingers tightly around the secret treasure. It's small, surprisingly dense and smooth to the touch, with a faint crystalline feel. You steal a glance at her. Her eyes, wide with a quiet intensity, meet yours once more. There's a ghost of a smile on her lips, a flicker of something profoundly human, something akin to empathy before she withdraws, melting back into the anonymity of the rows, her face once again a mask of quiet endurance. You bring the object to your nose, inhaling deeply. It holds a faint, sweet aroma, a fragile ghost of something precious. Then cautiously, almost reverently, you uncurl your fingers. There, nestled in your palm, sits a single pristine white sugar cube. It's a stark, almost shocking contrast to the grey, drab reality of this place. You put it in your mouth, and the immediate burst of pure, undiluted sweetness explodes on your tongue, a sensation so intense, so unexpected, that it almost brings tears to your eyes. It dissolves slowly, a sugary balm that coats your mouth, erasing the metallic taste of fear, the blandness of the gruel for a precious, fleeting moment. This small, simple cube, a stolen moment of sweetness, feels like an act of profound rebellion, a tiny defiance against the relentless bitterness of your existence. It's more than just sugar, it's a whisper of forgotten kindness, a tangible fragment of a world where pleasure, however fleeting, still exists. And you realize with a profound ache in your heart that even in the most dehumanizing of circumstances, the smallest acts of shared humanity can shine the brightest, a beacon of resilience in the suffocating darkness, reminding you that even when everything else is stripped away, the capacity for connection, for secret, gentle generosity, remains. The rich, earthy smell of the asylum farm and the small, sweet rebellion of the sugar cube are now distant echoes. You're led away from the fields, through a series of increasingly well-kept corridors, the air growing lighter, less stale, carrying a faint, unfamiliar scent of beeswax polish and old potpourri, an attempt at respectability that feels utterly incongruous here. Your course uniform, however, remains the same, a constant, abrasive reminder of your station. You're brought into a room that is starkly different from any you've seen within these walls. This is the visitor's parlor. It's small, rigidly tidy and unnervingly quiet, a chilling contrast to the clamor of the wards. A heavy, dark curtain blocks most of the light from a single high window, casting the room in a perpetual, muted twilight. Two stiff, high-backed chairs, upholstered in a faded, floral pattern, face each other across a small, polished mahogany table. On the table sits a single dusty vase holding a few wilting, yellowed flowers, a pathetic attempt at cheerfulness. You're directed to one of the chairs, its fabric surprisingly rough against your uniform, yet it feels less like a seat and more like a stage prop. The attendant steps back, standing sentinel near the door, their presence a silent, watchful shadow. And then you see her, a woman dressed in fine, dark mourning clothes, her face partially obscured by a heavy veil, sits opposite you. She is a stranger, yet her very presence here signifies some connection, some claim to your past. You catch the faint, delicate scent of lavender water clinging to her dark fabric, a potent reminder of the world you've left behind. She lifts her veiled head slightly, her gaze, though muted by the fabric, feels intense, searching, unnervingly analytical. She does not speak, does not offer a greeting, merely observes you with a profound, almost uncomfortable silence. In that awkward stillness you feel a visceral pressure, an urgent, desperate need to perform. You must appear calm, rational, composed, everything they claim you are not. Your hands, resting in your lap, clench involuntarily, and you feel the dampness of sweat on your palms, a betraying sign of your internal turmoil. You try to arrange your face into an expression of placid sanity, to still the tremor in your lip, to keep your eyes from darting around the room. Every muscle in your body feels stretched taut, straining under the immense effort of appearing normal. You know instinctively that this is a test, a silent, cruel assessment, and that your fate, your future, perhaps even your freedom, hinges on this performance. The air is thick with unspoken words, with the desperate hope of connection and the terrifying fear of failure. This interaction, devoid of genuine human warmth, is nothing more than a carefully orchestrated charade. And you wonder, how long can one truly pretend to be well, when the very act of pretending drains you more profoundly than any illness could? The strained silence of the visitor's parlor stretches on, each second a leaden weight. The woman in mourning sits opposite you, her veiled gaze an unreadable presence, her silence more profound than any accusation. You maintain your careful composure, a fragile mask of sanity, your muscles aching with the effort. The faint scent of lavender from her clothes is a torment, a phantom whisper of a life irrevocably lost. Then with a rustle of dark fabric she finally stirs. Her hand, gloved in black kid leather, reaches into a small reticule at her side. She doesn't offer it to you directly, but places a small, carefully folded handkerchief on the polished mahogany table between you. Her movements are precise, almost detached. It's not an act of kindness, not a gesture of comfort. It's an almost clinical offering, a symbol of their visit complete. She rises, her dark form elegant and contained, a stark contrast to your rough, shapeless uniform. As she stands, a faint, familiar scent is dislodged from the folds of her heavy wool coat, a fleeting current in the stagnant air. It's a scent that hits you like a physical blow, a sudden, powerful wave of recognition that makes your breath catch in your throat. Not lavender, not polish, but something infinitely more intimate, more devastating. It's the lingering, unmistakable smell of pipe tobacco mingled with old leather and a faint, subtle musk that belongs to one person alone. It's the scent of your husband's coat. The smell is fleeting, an almost cruel phantom, but its effect is immediate and profound. It fills your senses, overwhelming the sterile reality of the parlor, transporting you back. You see him, vivid in your mind's eye. His kind smile, the comforting weight of his hand, the easy warmth of his presence. You remember 1,000 small domestic moments, moments of quiet joy, of shared laughter, of intimate whispers. It's a sudden, brutal, unbidden flood of memory, sharp and agonizing in its clarity, a stark, painful reminder of the life you once shared, the life you've been ripped from. The woman turns, her form a dark silhouette against the heavy curtain, and walks towards the door, her footsteps soft on the polished floor. The attendant opens the door with a quiet click, and she disappears, her presence fading, taking with her the last vestiges of that precious, agonizing scent. You are left alone again, your heart pounding with a fresh wave of grief, your eyes burning with unshed tears. The brief, almost imperceptible scent of a loved one, inadvertently carried into your prison, becomes the cruelest reminder of freedom. You realize with a profound ache that memory itself can be a double-edged sword, a treasure of what was, but also a torment of what can never be again. And you wonder, how does one survive when the very essence of love becomes a constant, haunting echo of loss? The lingering scent of your husband's pipe tobacco, a ghost of memory, now feels cruelly replaced by the sharp, metallic tang of iron gall ink and the ever-present carbolic. You're back in the sterile, unforgiving room, seated on the hard wooden chair, its cold surface pressing against your bare skin through the coarse uniform. The air is heavy, expectant, thick with an unspoken weight that makes each shallow breath a conscious effort. Every sense is heightened, acutely aware of the silent tension that fills the small space. Behind the formidable mahogany desk, the doctor sits, a figure of absolute unyielding authority. His starched white collar is impeccable, almost blinding in the dim light, a sharp line against his severe dark suit. He doesn't meet your eye immediately. Instead, his gaze is fixed on the papers before him, a collection of documents whose precise script you can only guess at. He shuffles them slowly, the soft rustle of aged parchment a surprisingly loud sound in the profound quiet, each movement a deliberate act, drawing out the suspense, prolonging the inevitable. His posture is rigid, almost entirely devoid of the subtle human shifts that betray thought or emotion. He is an observer, a judge, not a compassionate healer. You feel his scrutiny without his direct gaze, a profound sense of being dissected, analyzed, reduced to a series of observations. The cold from the chair seeps deeper into your bones, a physical manifestation of the chilling formality of this encounter. Then, finally, his eyes flick up, meeting yours. They are cold, detached, yet intensely sharp, boring into you with an unnerving, clinical certainty. There is no flicker of doubt, no hint of understanding, only a grim, unwavering conviction. He offers no verbal preamble, no gentle words of explanation. Instead, with a slight, almost imperceptible nod of his head and a subtle shift of the papers on his desk towards you, a single, damning word resonates in your mind, as clear and absolute as if he had shouted it aloud. Hysteria asterisk. The word lands like a physical blow, a sudden searing brand upon your very being. A wave of incandescent, frustrated anger flashes through you, immediately followed by a profound, burning injustice that ignites a fierce heat in your chest. Hysteria, it's a diagnosis that feels less like a medical assessment and more like a convenient dismissal, a convenient label to contain all inconvenience, all legitimate feeling, all female emotion that deviates from the rigid norm. Your anxieties, your profound grief, your terror at this confinement, all of it reduced to a single gendered affliction, a convenient excuse to invalidate your experience, to justify your imprisonment. You bite back a gasp, a desperate protest that would only, confirm his preconceived notions. Your hands clench involuntarily in your lap, the rough canvas of your uniform digging into your palms, a constant, abrasive reminder of the control they exert over you. The air in the room, already heavy, now feels suffocating, thick with the weight of this arbitrary, devastating pronouncement. You realize with a chilling certainty that this diagnosis is not about healing you, but about containing you, about erasing your individual truth. A life once complex and vibrant can be so swiftly, so brutally reduced to a single damning word, locking you not just within these walls, but within a narrative that denies your very self. And you wonder, how does one fight against an enemy that dismisses your reality simply by calling it madness? The doctor's chilling diagnosis of hysteria still reverberates in your mind, a cruel pronouncement that strips away your very humanity. You're no longer in the parlor, the cold, hard chair is gone. Instead, you're now in a space that feels utterly different, yet infinitely more oppressive. The air here is thin, stagnant, and eerily silent, carrying only a faint, bitter tang of old fear and despair, devoid of even the carbolic, as if no one deems it worthy of cleaning. This is solitary confinement. It's a tiny, windowless cell, its stone walls pressing in on you, grey and cold, absorbing all light, all sound, all hope. A single small grating high above offers no view, no connection to the outside world, only a faint, almost imperceptible current of stale air. There's no furniture, no cot, just a rough straw mat on the floor, its dry, rustling fibers a harsh contrast to the cold stone beneath. You sit, huddled on the mat, the coarse uniform feeling like a second skin of suffering. Your arms are still bound, though perhaps less tightly than in the straitjacket, but the restriction remains, a constant physical reminder of your utter powerlessness. The silence is absolute, heavy and suffocating, punctuated only by the frantic beat of your own heart and the shallow, ragged sound of your breathing. It's a silence that screams, amplifying every internal tremor, every unspoken thought, every raw, visceral emotion. And in this profound, unyielding quiet, your mind inevitably turns inward, drawn back to the source of your agony. The sharp, aching memory of a tiny, fragile hand, a soft cry, a fleeting warmth that was too quickly, too brutally extinguished. It's the memory of your child, a ghost of a presence that now fills the empty cell, vivid and agonizing. You feel the phantom weight of a newborn in your arms, the soft brush of its downy hair against your cheek, the profound, overwhelming love that blossomed in your heart, only to be torn away. The grief, once a dull, persistent ache, now erupts, raw and unbound in the suffocating silence. It's a maternal grief, a primal agony that claws at your throat, burning behind your eyes. Your body shakes with silent sobs, the tears tracing hot, wet paths down your cold cheeks, each one a testament to an unbearable loss. This is your truth, not hysteria, but an unyielding, profound sorrow, a mother's pain, brutally recast as madness. The walls of the cell don't just confine your body, they contain your grief, trapping it within your own tormented mind. You are left alone, stripped of everything, with only the raw, unvarnished truth of your pain as your companion. And you realize, with a chilling clarity, that some prisons are built not of stone and iron, but of a society's refusal to understand, to empathize, turning the deepest human suffering into a convenient, controllable madness. How does a mother's heart survive when its greatest pain is deemed a sickness to be locked away? The absolute suffocating solitude of solitary confinement eventually breaks, not into freedom, but back into the fractured reality of the communal ward. You lie on your narrow, hard cot, the thin mattress offering little comfort, the coarse uniform clinging to your skin. The air is still, heavy with the familiar, unpleasant blend of institutional smells, carbolic, unwashed bodies, stale fear. Midnight has long passed, yet sleep remains a distant, elusive visitor, taunting you with its absence. The dormitory is plunged into near darkness, lit only by a single high gas lamp turned down to a mere flicker, casting long, distorted shadows that dance and writhe on the grey walls. These are not comforting shadows. They are monstrous, ephemeral figures that shift with every subtle movement of the flame, transforming the familiar space into a canvas for your deepest anxieties. A bedpost morphs into a grasping hand, a folded blanket into a slumped figure, a trick of the light making the mundane utterly terrifying. Your eyes, wide and unblinking, strain to make sense of the gloom, but the deeper you look, the more formless, the more menacing the shadows become. The silence is punctuated by the restless sounds of the other occupants. A low, guttural moan from a distant corner, a soft, rhythmic scratching that seems to come from under a nearby bed, the sudden, sharp intake of breath, a fitful cough that rattles through the air. Each sound, amplified by the oppressive quiet, feels like a threat, a sign of something unseen, something potentially dangerous lurking just beyond the edge of your vision. Your heart thrums a nervous beat against your ribs, a quick, shallow rhythm that betrays your heightened state of unease. You pull the thin, scratchy blanket higher, trying to ward off both the physical chill and the psychological cold that seeps into your very bones. Every shadow seems to hold a secret, every creak of the old building a whispered warning. You find yourself scanning the darkness, your mind painting terrifying scenarios onto the shifting forms, the vague outlines of the other patients becoming more sinister in the oppressive gloom. The overwhelming sense is one of vulnerability, of being utterly exposed and unprotected in a space where sanity itself is a fragile commodity. In this perpetual midnight, the dormitory transforms into a theatre of fear, where your own mind becomes the playwright crafting terrors from the mundane. You realize with a chilling certainty that the true horror of confinement isn't just the physical walls, but the way it warps perception, turning the familiar into something menacing, and sleep, once a sanctuary, into a gauntlet of imagined threats. And you wonder what happens when the very darkness that should bring rest instead amplifies every hidden dread, making fear your only companion. The dim, flickering gaslight of the dormitory finally sputters and dies, plunging the vast, communal room into an absolute suffocating darkness. The oppressive weight of it descends instantly, an almost tangible presence that presses in on your eyes, your skin, every exposed surface. It's not just an absence of light, it's a heavy velvet cloak that smothers, a void that seems to absorb all sound, all warmth, all hope. You lie rigid on your narrow cot, the thin blanket pulled tight to your chin, though it offers no comfort against the profound, internal chill that seeps into your very bones. The air in this intensified darkness feels heavier, thicker with the stale, familiar blend of institutional smells, carbolic, unwashed bodies, suppressed despair. Every other sense sharpens, desperately trying to compensate for the sudden blindness. You hear the slow, ragged breathing of the other patients, their soft snores and fitful murmurs amplified by the profound quiet. A distant floorboard creaks, a mouse perhaps, or something far more unsettling, scuttling in the impenetrable gloom. Your heart begins to thump a frantic, uneven rhythm against your ribs, a wild drum in the cavern of your chest, growing louder, more desperate in the terrifying black. The shadows, once merely dancing spectres in the gaslight, now become solid, terrifying entities in your mind's eye. Every imagined movement, every unknown sound, paints a vivid, grotesque image behind your eyelids. You feel a growing, desperate surge of panic rising, a choking wave that threatens to engulf you. Your throat tightens, your breath catches, becoming shallow, uneven gasps. You want to cry out to shatter the suffocating silence, to pierce the oppressive darkness with a sound, any sound, to assert your presence, your fear, your very existence. You open your mouth, summoning every ounce of your will, your lungs burning, your body trembling with the effort. You push, you strain, you try to unleash the scream that is building, hot and desperate, in your chest. But nothing comes, no sound. Your throat feels constricted, locked tight, as if a powerful, invisible hand has clamped down, squeezing out your voice. Your vocal cords refuse to obey, mute and unyielding. You thrash your head on the rough pillow, struggling against the profound silence, but the scream remains trapped, a deafening, internal shriek that only you can hear. It's a terrifying, visceral sensation, the ultimate powerlessness. To be overwhelmed by fear, to be screaming internally, yet to be utterly voiceless. The inability to make a sound, to break the crushing quiet, adds a new, horrifying layer to your confinement. It's a complete loss of control, not just over your body, but over your most fundamental expression of terror. The darkness presses closer, more oppressive than before, and you realize that some prisons are so complete, they can even steal your voice, leaving you to contend with your deepest fears in utter, terrifying silence. And you wonder what can truly be taken from a person when even their scream is denied them. The oppressive darkness and the choked silence of the dormitory eventually recede with the first faint grey light of dawn. The gas lamp flickers back to life, casting its meagre illumination over the long rows of cots, revealing the same gaunt faces, the same institutional grey walls. You're no longer screaming internally, but a profound weariness has settled deep in your bones, a constant companion. The air still smells of stale disinfectant and unwashed humanity, heavy and cloying. You're moved once more, ushered from the dormitory into a solitary cell, not the one you experienced before, but another just as small, just as bleak. The walls are a uniform, dreary grey, peeling in patches, stained by years of unseen despair. There's no furniture, no comfort, just the rough straw mat on the floor, its dry rustling a testament to its age. The air here is colder, thinner, carrying a faint, dusty scent of decay and forgotten things. Your fingers, constantly chafing against the rough uniform, ache with a persistent, dull throb. You slide your hand along the rough plaster of the wall, seeking some anchor, some tactile connection in the overwhelming emptiness of the cell. The texture is coarse, uneven, gritty beneath your fingertips. Your gaze, unfocused from exhaustion, drifts across the monotonous surface, searching for anything to break the relentless uniformity, anything that speaks of human presence, of a life lived within these confines before your own. And then you see it, near a particularly grimy patch, slightly above eye level, a faint, almost ghostly etching on the wall. It's barely visible in the dim light, a series of delicate, shallow scratches on the plaster. You lean closer, your heart giving a sudden, unexpected lurch, a spark of morbid curiosity piercing through your weariness. It's a face, not a detailed portrait, but a crude, almost childlike rendering of a human face, etched with immense, desperate effort. Two hollow circles for eyes, a single downward curving line for a mouth, and faint, almost hair-like strokes for a forehead. The lines are thin, uneven, clearly made by something blunt, something fragile. You trace the outlines with your own fingertip, feeling the shallow grooves in the plaster. It's undeniably the work of a fingernail tirelessly, desperately carving out a presence, a mark against the anonymity of the walls. It speaks of countless hours of lonely, desperate effort, of a profound, burning need to leave a trace, to assert existence against the crushing weight of oblivion. A profound sense of shared despair washes over you, a chilling understanding of the soul who spent their endless hours painstakingly scratching their very essence onto this unforgiving wall. It's a silent scream, a defiant whisper of "I was here," etched into the fabric of their prison. This crude image is more than just a drawing, it's a desperate plea, a final, poignant testament to a human life, a cry for remembrance in a place designed to erase all traces. And you realize with a heavy heart that sometimes the most powerful acts of resistance are not grand gestures, but the quiet, desperate assertion of one's own existence, etched into the very walls of their confinement. What enduring mark do we leave when all else is stripped away? The ghostly face scratched into the wall is a poignant testament to defiance, a silent echo of a forgotten soul. You're still in the small, cold cell, the damp, dusty air heavy with untold stories. The rough mat offers scant comfort, and your uniform chafes with a relentless familiarity. But the sight of that etched face has awoken something in you, a new alertness to the hidden messages, the secret acts of rebellion that might exist in this place. Your fingers, still raw and aching, explore the rough, peeling plaster of the wall, searching not for comfort but for more hidden narratives. Your gaze sweeps across the floor, along the narrow skirting boards, into every shadowed corner, your senses finely tuned to any subtle deviation from the monotonous grey. The silence of the cell, once so oppressive, now feels like a canvas, a space where whispers might endure, where secrets might be held. Then, almost imperceptibly, your eye catches a tiny, faint irregularity. Wedged deep into a narrow crack between the floorboards and the wall, barely visible in the dim light, is a minuscule scrap of paper. It's a miracle it hasn't been swept away, or simply decayed into dust. Your heart gives a quiet lurch, a sudden thrum of anticipation. You move slowly, cautiously, your bound hands making the task difficult, but the urgency of discovery propels you forward. With painstaking effort, using the edge of your nail, you manage to prise the tiny fragment free. It's no bigger than your thumb, yellowed with age, its edges torn and frayed. The paper is surprisingly stiff, almost brittle, and it holds the faint, delicate scent of something long forgotten, perhaps a hint of old perfume or dried herbs. You turn it over in your palm, feeling the delicate texture, and then you see it. Written in a tiny, almost microscopic script so faded it's barely legible are words. Not a shopping list, not a plea for help, but lines of what can only be a poem. The ink is brown with age, the letters cramped and precise, a testament to the effort and secrecy involved in its creation. You squint, bringing it closer to your eyes, trying to decipher the faint, flowing script. You can't read every word, but the rhythm is undeniable, the cadence of carefully chosen language. It speaks of lost sunlight, of birdsong, of a longing for a green field, of a spirit that refuses to be caged even if the body is. This tiny, fragile scrap of paper, holding its silent, secret verses, feels like a profound act of defiance. It's a testament to the human spirit's desperate need to create, to find beauty, to assert its inner world, even when all outer freedom is denied. In a place designed to silence and erase, these hidden words are a furious, beautiful rebellion. And you realize with a rush of profound understanding that the greatest prisons may bind the body, but they can never truly extinguish the intricate, defiant landscape of the mind. How powerful is the human need to leave a trace, a whisper of beauty, even when facing oblivion? The secret poem, a whispered act of defiance, still lingers in your memory, a testament to enduring spirit. But now a new sensation takes hold, a visceral tremor of hope that quickens your pulse. You're led out into the exercise yard, a desolate patch of trampled earth enclosed by high, unforgiving stone walls. The air, however, is dramatically different. It's thick, damp and chilling, tasting faintly of moisture and cold stone. A dense white fog has descended, muffling the usual sounds of the asylum, swallowing the towering walls, reducing your vision to mere feet. This fog is a gift. It coils and swirls around you, a silent, benevolent shroud. The distant cries and murmurs of the wards are swallowed, the heavy footsteps of attendants soften to mere whispers. The oppressive presence of the towering stone walls themselves seems to dissolve, absorbed by the impenetrable haze. For the first time, the rigid boundaries of your prison feel blurred, indistinct, almost permeable. You can't see the watchful eyes, the rigid postures, the unyielding stone. You're cloaked, hidden, a momentary ghost in a world of ghosts. Your heart begins to pound, not with fear, but with a frantic, exhilarating hope. It's a rapid, insistent rhythm against your ribs, a quickening pulse that seems to infuse every nerve ending with a surge of adrenaline. The raw, metallic taste of anticipation fills your mouth, sharp and almost painful, a stark contrast to the blandness of institutional food. You instinctively pull the rough uniform closer, not for warmth but for stealth, for the illusion of invisibility the fog offers. You move cautiously, your feet barely disturbing the damp earth, each step deliberate, weightless. Your hands, usually held tight to your sides, now feel a subtle urge to reach out, to test the boundaries of this fleeting liberation. The fog clings to your skin, cool and wet, leaving tiny droplets on your face, on your eyelashes, blurring the edges of your vision further. It smells of damp earth and something wild, something untamed, a whisper of freedom carried on the misty air. You catch a glimpse of another figure, a vague, shifting outline also moving with a hesitant, almost desperate purpose, lost and yet perhaps found within the swirling white. A shared glance, a silent acknowledgement of this momentary, potent opportunity passes between you. The sheer audacity of the thought, the raw, visceral possibility of simply walking away into the enveloping whiteness, fills you with a dizzying mix of terror and intoxicating longing. This isn't an escape plan, it's a feeling, a sudden, blinding flash of pure, unadulterated yearning for liberation. And you realize with a shiver that has nothing to do with the cold, that hope, however fragile, can blossom even in the densest fog, painting the impossible with a tantalizing sheen of possibility. What can the human spirit truly endure when the taste of freedom is so near, yet still so cruelly out of reach? The intoxicating taste of a longed-for escape, fleeting yet potent, is brutally, suddenly snatched away. The swirling fog, once a benevolent shroud of anonymity, becomes a trap. Your heart, still pounding with the frantic rhythm of desperate hope, abruptly plummets, a sickening lurch in your chest. The damp earth beneath your feet, which moments ago promised a path to freedom, now feels impossibly heavy, dragging you down. From the shifting white haze, a dark, imposing form emerges, swift and unyielding. You feel it before you see it, a rough, iron grip clamping down on your arm, shockingly strong, painfully tight, biting into your flesh through the coarse uniform. It's an instant, visceral assertion of control, crushing any lingering flicker of defiance. A gasp is torn from your throat, raw and involuntary, as you're spun around, pulled sharply from your path, your feet stumbling on the uneven ground. The metallic tang of fear, once a hopeful anticipation, now becomes a bitter, burning dread on your tongue. There's no struggle, no possibility of it. The attendant's grip is absolute, and another dark figure emerges from the fog, joining the first, their combined presence an overwhelming force. You're propelled forward, no longer with the hesitant steps of hope, but with a forced, unyielding momentum back towards the unseen walls of the asylum. The fog, once a veil, now feels like a blindfold, disorienting and suffocating, mirroring the sudden clarity of your dashed hopes. The thud of heavy boots on the damp ground, no longer muffled, now rings with a sharp, punitive rhythm, marching you towards an inevitable consequence. You're dragged through a heavy, unseen door, the air instantly colder, heavier, smelling of damp stone and something even more desolate, the bitter, clinging scent of long-abandoned fear. It's a deeper, more profound chill than any you've felt so far. You're pushed roughly into a small, dark cell, colder and more barren than any you've inhabited before. This is not a ward, not a treatment room. This is a punishment cell. The walls are wet to the touch, slick with condensation, the floor uneven and perpetually damp. No straw mat, no window, no light. Just absolute suffocating darkness and the bitter cold that seems to penetrate directly into your very bones, stealing all warmth, all possibility of comfort. The heavy door clangs shut behind you, the sound echoing with a hollow, resonant finality that seems to seal your fate in cold, hard stone. The grating scrape of the key in the lock, then a second, more ominous thunk of a heavy bolt, are the last sounds you hear before an even deeper silence descends. You're left in the black, the brutal cold seeping into your exposed skin, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. The punishment isn't just the cold or the darkness. It's the crushing weight of utter, absolute isolation, the brutal clarity that every hope, every flicker of defiance will be met with swift, unyielding retribution. The dread that washes over you is a cold, suffocating tide, far more profound than any fear. And you realize with a chilling certainty that in this place, even the briefest taste of freedom comes at an unimaginable cost, dragging you deeper into an abyss where time and hope simply cease to exist. The bone-chilling cold and suffocating darkness of the punishment cell eventually yield, but not to kindness nor to release. You're moved again, propelled through silent, desolate corridors, the air growing thick with a new, even more disturbing blend of smells. Old urine, stale sweat, and a pervasive, sickly sweetness that hints at decay, all mingled with the ever-present carbolic. It's an odor that signals true abandonment. You're pushed into a vast, chillingly quiet ward, unlike any you've seen. This is the realm of the incurables. The space is dimly lit by a few high, grime-encrusted windows, casting a perpetual twilight over rows of figures slumped in chairs or lying listlessly on narrow cots. The room itself feels drained of life, an echo chamber of resigned despair. There's no clamor here, no desperate moans or sudden shrieks, only a profound, heavy stillness, punctuated by the shallow, rhythmic breathing of countless bodies. As you're guided through the oppressive quiet, your gaze falls upon the faces around you. They are uniformly gaunt, hollowed by time and suffering, but it's their eyes that truly sear themselves into your memory. Vacant, utterly, terribly vacant. They stare blankly ahead or fixate on some unseen point in the distance, their pupils wide and unseeing, devoid of any spark of recognition, any flicker of thought, any hint of inner life. They are like windows to empty rooms, reflecting nothing, revealing nothing. Some faces are slack, mouths slightly agape, while others are frozen in a rictus of silent, inexplicable terror. Their hands, when you see them, are often still, lying limp in their laps or curled into strange, unnatural positions. Their movements are slow, almost imperceptible, as if even the act of shifting is too great an effort. You walk past them and they do not stir, do not acknowledge your presence, do not respond. They exist in their own internal worlds, utterly disconnected, their bodies mere vessels for minds that have retreated beyond reach. The air itself seems to absorb their silence, heavy and thick with an unspoken finality. A profound, chilling dread settles in your chest, colder than any ice bath, deeper than any solitary cell. This isn't just a place of confinement. It's a living graveyard, a testament to lives utterly consumed by their suffering, minds irrevocably broken. The sensory emptiness of this ward, the profound lack of engagement from these souls, is a far more terrifying prospect than any physical torment. You realize with a sickening certainty that this is the true end, a life sentence not of days or years, but of an eternal internal void. And you wonder what can possibly remain of the self when all connection, all thought, all conscious awareness has simply terrifyingly ceased to be. The chilling emptiness of the incurables ward with its silent, vacant eyes leaves a cold dread clinging to your soul. You're moved again, placed back into a small, familiar cell, the air stale and thick with the omnipresent institutional smells. The rough straw mat on the floor feels depressingly familiar, and the coarse uniform is now a second skin of endless discomfort. Your body aches with a profound weariness that seems to have burrowed deep into your bones. You find yourself drawn, almost instinctively, to the cold, grey wall that defines your confinement. It's the same stone as every other wall in this unforgiving place, rough, unyielding, scarred by time and dampness. You reach out a tentative hand, your fingers brushing against the abrasive surface. The texture is coarse, gritty, each tiny imperfection sharp against your skin. A faint, dusty smell rises from the stone, ancient and inert, a smell that speaks of immense age and countless contained lives. As your fingers trail along the wall, a slight irregularity catches your attention. It's not a crack, not a patch of peeling plaster, but something more deliberate, yet almost invisible. You press your palm flat against the cold stone, feeling for subtle changes. Your fingertips then find it, a shallow groove, a subtle depression, worn smooth by an impossibly long history of touch. You trace it following its path across the rough surface, a faint, almost ghostly line. It's a horizontal line stretching perhaps a foot, almost at eye level, then curving down slightly, then up again, then down. As your fingers follow the contours, you notice other, fainter marks around it, ghost outlines of similar patterns. This isn't a natural erosion, this is the mark of repeated, meticulous touch. It's the impression of a hand, or perhaps many hands, tracing the same path day after day, year after year, 30 years. The thought slams into you with a chilling clarity. For 3 decades, some unseen soul, perhaps in this very cell, painstakingly traced this same fragment of wall, creating this almost imperceptible yet profoundly resonant path. You imagine the countless mornings, the endless afternoons, the quiet, desolate nights as someone's fingers, perhaps just like yours, found solace or despair in the repetitive act of tracing. The sheer monotony, the unyielding sameness of it all, becomes almost unbearable. This groove in the stone is a testament to an unimaginable span of human endurance, of a life reduced to the most primal, tactile interaction with its prison. It speaks of a mind clinging to a single, constant, tangible reality in a world stripped of all else. The rough texture of the stone, the subtle, worn groove, is a profound and chilling record. It's a physical imprint of a life lived slowly, incrementally, day by day, for 30 years, by merely existing against the cold, unyielding wall. And you realize with a heavy heart that true madness isn't always wild and screaming. Sometimes it's the quiet, persistent madness of endless endurance, of a mind slowly worn smooth by the relentless friction of time and confinement, leaving only an indelible, silent mark on the unfeeling stone. What depths of human endurance lie hidden, etched into the very fabric of our prisons? The stale, familiar air of the asylum no longer simply oppresses, now it hums with a strange, performative energy. You find yourself in the thick of it not as a victim, but as an observer, an imposter. The coarse uniform scratches at your skin, just as it always has, but tonight each itch is a cue, a reminder of the elaborate charade you're playing. You taste the dry, metallic tang of an adrenaline-laced falsehood on your tongue, a constant companion to the meticulous act you maintain. You're walking through the communal ward, the low, unsettling drone of its permanent residents a backdrop to your carefully constructed delirium. Your gaze, though seemingly unfocused, subtly tracks the movements of the attendants, observing their reactions, logging their impassive expressions. You let your head loll to one side, a deliberate exaggeration, a feigned weakness that you've noticed garners a certain type of disinterest, a dismissive glance rather than direct intervention. Your hands, usually held tight to your sides in a desperate attempt at self-control, now twitch erratically, plucking at the rough fabric of your dress, a mimicry of the nervous tics you've seen in others. The profound exhaustion you feel isn't just from the physical conditions, it's from the relentless mental strain of the performance. Every gesture, every vacant stare, every incoherent murmur you allow to escape your lips is a carefully calculated decision. You bump into a wall, a sudden, clumsy stumble that you know looks convincing, and feel the cold, abrasive plaster against your cheek for a fleeting, disorienting moment. The attendants glance over, their eyes cold and assessing before turning away, seemingly satisfied that your descent into madness continues as expected. You feel a thrill, sharp and unsettling, when they avert their gaze, a perverse validation of your successful deceit. You've learned the subtle language of the asylum, the vacant stare that deflects attention, the repetitive movement that marks you as harmlessly deluded, the mumbled non sequitur that categorizes you as beyond rational engagement. It's a terrifying dance where one wrong step, one flash of too much lucidity could expose your ruse and irrevocably alter your objective. The smell of disinfectant mixed with stale bodies and cold fear has become the scent of your theater, the backdrop to your perilous act. You notice the tiny details, the flicker in another patient's eye when you perform a particularly convincing bout of agitation, a fleeting shadow of confusion that might just be recognition. In those moments, a chilling question gnaws at you: how much of this feigned delirium is now real? How easy is it to cross that invisible line when your every waking moment is dedicated to blurring it? The constant vigilance, the suppression of your true self, the relentless mimicry of despair, it takes its toll. You feel the system from within not just as an observer but as a participant, the coarse canvas of the asylum slowly, subtly, beginning to reshape the very contours of your own mind. And you realize with a profound, unsettling clarity that when you spend so long pretending to be mad, the greatest danger isn't being discovered but forgetting how to be sane. The relentless mental strain of your feigned delirium continues, each twitch and vacant stare a carefully constructed lie. You move through the communal ward, the familiar institutional smells now intertwined with the dry, almost coppery taste of your own heightened anxiety. The low, endless hum of the patients and the distant, muffled footsteps of attendants have become the unchanging soundtrack to your perilous charade. Then, a sudden, jarring shift in the atmosphere. A new scent cuts through the stale air, a faint, almost metallic aroma, sharp and unfamiliar, preceding a new presence. The low murmur of the ward is pierced by the sound of unusual movement, heavier and more deliberate than the usual patrols. You watch with a carefully blank expression as two figures enter the ward, accompanied by an attendant whose usual impassive face shows a flicker of forced cordiality. One figure carries a bulky, dark wooden box on a tripod. The other a metal pan, a photographer. The camera is positioned aimed at the rows of patients at you. The photographer works with a quiet, almost reverent seriousness, adjusting lenses, setting plates. The second figure holds the metal pan, a strange white powder visible within it. A prickle of unease, sharp and cold, runs down your spine. You know from whispered tales what comes next, but seeing it, knowing it will happen here now, is a different dread entirely. You instinctively try to pull your head back to avert your gaze, but you force yourself to maintain the vacant stare, to remain part of the backdrop, lest you draw unwanted attention. Then, without warning, the world explodes. A blinding, searing flash of brilliant white light erupts from the metal pan, a sudden, shocking detonation that sears itself onto your retinas, leaving you momentarily, utterly blind. A deafening asterisk crack accompanies it, a sharp, concussive sound that vibrates through your bones, making your ears ring painfully. The smell of burning magnesium, acrid and metallic, instantly fills your lungs, catching in your throat, bitter and choking. You gasp, disoriented, your eyes stinging, trying desperately to clear the afterimages that dance wildly across your vision. Phantom spots of purple and green, blinding you to the physical reality of the ward. In that split second of intense, artificial light, however, before the darkness returned, you saw the other faces caught in the stark, brutal illumination, the raw fear, the profound bewilderment, the utter despair etched into every line, every contortion. You saw the peeling paint on the walls, the grim, unadorned iron of the cots, the unyielding coldness of the institutional existence, laid bare in an instant of searing light. The flash fades, leaving you in a deeper, more profound darkness, the silence of the patients now punctuated by a few startled whimpers and gasps. You realize with a chilling certainty that this moment, this blinding flash, has done more than merely capture an image. It has exposed, for one terrifying second, the hidden horrors of this place, revealing a truth too brutal for sustained light. And you wonder, how can one ever truly forget what has been seen in such a fleeting, yet devastating flash? The lingering acrid smell of burnt magnesium, a ghost of the blinding flash, has slowly dissipated, leaving behind the perpetual, stale scent of institutional disinfectant. You're back in the familiar, oppressive quiet of the communal ward, slumped on your cot, your body aching with a deep, pervasive weariness that penetrates to your very bones. The feigned delirium, your constant performance, has become a second nature, a mask so well worn it sometimes feels irrevocably fused to your skin. The usual low hum of the ward, a chorus of murmurs and sighs, is suddenly punctuated by an unexpected change. A new set of footsteps, lighter, more brisk than the usual heavy tread of the attendants, approaches. You hear the rustle of finer fabric, the distinct scent of fresh linen and something faintly medicinal, yet not harsh, preceding a new presence. Then a figure appears at the head of the ward, not one of the familiar, impassive attendants, but a man in a crisp, dark suit, his posture erect, his gaze sweeping across the rows of patients with a quiet, yet commanding authority. He is clearly new. He clears his throat, a sharp, resonant sound that cuts through the accustomed murmur of the ward, demanding immediate attention. The room falls into a sudden, tense silence, every eye, every vacant stare now fixed upon him. Your heart gives a curious flutter, a tiny, almost forgotten spark of something that might be hope, or perhaps just a deeper fear of the unknown. The air feels charged, expectant. Then he speaks. His voice is deep, clear, and carries a tone of unwavering conviction, utterly unlike the gruff commands or dismissive murmurs you've grown accustomed to. It resonates through the vast, echoing space, each word distinct, purposeful. And the words he speaks are startling, almost unbelievable, slicing through the heavy atmosphere like a sharp blade. Effective immediately, he announces, his voice firm, all mechanical restraints are to be removed. Straitjackets, restraint chairs, ankle cuffs, they are abolished. They are an indignity, an impediment to true healing. We shall treat with kindness, with engagement, not with chains. A wave of profound, bewildering shock washes over you, momentarily shattering your carefully constructed facade of delirium. The words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken promise, yet almost impossible to fully comprehend. The other patients around you stir, a ripple of movement, a collective silent gasp, a tremor of disbelief passing through the rows. Some stare blankly, their vacant eyes uncomprehending. Others glance furtively at each other, a fragile, uncertain hope flickering in their depths. The scent of disinfectant now feels charged, no longer simply stale but tinged with the faint, almost impossible aroma of change. You feel a sudden, involuntary tremor run through your own body, a deep, unsettling vibration that reaches your very core. This announcement, so simple, so direct, yet so utterly revolutionary, is a visceral shock to a system that has known nothing but rigid, unyielding control. It challenges everything you've come to understand about this place, about your existence here. And you realize with a profound, almost terrifying clarity that sometimes the most revolutionary change begins not with an uprising, but with a single voice uttering words that dare to dismantle the very foundations of suffering. What happens to a spirit so long accustomed to chains when it is suddenly offered the possibility, however fragile, of freedom? The superintendent's voice, a clear bell of authority, still rings in your ears, echoing its astonishing decree, no more restraints. A wave of disbelief, thick and disorienting, washes over you, mingling with the familiar, stale scent of institutional disinfectant. Attendants, their movements oddly hesitant, begin to release figures from their bonds. A soft rustle of canvas, the faint click of buckles, now sounds of liberation rather than confinement. Your own coarse uniform, no longer pressing against your ribs from a straitjacket, feels strangely light, almost insubstantial, a ghost of its former oppression. You watch transfixed as an attendant approaches one of the heavy, dark wooden doors lining the communal ward. Usually the jingle of keys, the scrape of metal on metal, heralds a locking, a sealing of fate. But now he simply stands before it, his hand reaching not for keys but for the tarnished brass handle. He turns it, a soft, almost silent click. Then with a slow, deliberate push, the door swings inwards, revealing not another identical corridor but a patch of slightly brighter, yet still unfamiliar space beyond. The opening seems impossibly wide, a gaping maw of terrifying possibility. A collective, almost imperceptible gasp passes through the ward, a wave of stunned silence. No one rushes forward, no one cries out. The sight of an unlocked door, a concept so utterly alien in this world of iron and stone, seems to paralyze. Your own heart, already a frantic drum, now feels as if it might burst from your chest. Your breath catches, shallow and quick, as you stare at the open doorway, feeling the subtle current of air that now flows freely from beyond. It smells slightly different, less confined, yet carries its own chill of the unknown. Your feet, long accustomed to being propelled or dragged, feel heavy, rooted to the spot. The choice, the terrifying, exhilarating choice to step through that opening, feels like an immense physical weight. You want to rush, to run, to flee into that sliver of freedom, yet a profound, inexplicable terror holds you back. The very concept of being unbound, of making your own decision, is shockingly unfamiliar, a strange new form of fear. You raise one foot, feeling the surprising lightness of your limb, and then, with a trembling, uncertain resolve, you place it forward. It's a tiny step, barely an inch, but it feels like crossing an ocean. What does it mean to be truly free when freedom itself feels like the most terrifying unknown? The cold hits you first, a cruel, biting wind that whips through the gaping holes of what were once windows. It carries the smell of damp earth, crumbling plaster, and something metallic sweet, the deep, pervasive scent of decay, heavy and undeniable, catching unpleasantly at the back of your throat. Years have passed since this place held its secrets, decades, perhaps even a century. What once was a formidable Victorian asylum, a place of silent suffering and strict confinement, is now a mere skeleton of stone, a modern ruin. You stand in what was once the main hall or perhaps a vast communal ward, though its original purpose is largely swallowed by the overwhelming devastation. The floor is treacherous, a perilous landscape strewn with broken glass, splintered wood, and chunks of fallen masonry. Each cautious step sends a crunching echo through the vast, empty space, a jarring sound in the profound silence that has replaced the asylum's former living hum. High above, where grand ceilings once soared, only jagged remnants of timber cling precariously, their splintered ends pointing like accusations at the sky. The grey, heavy sky, pregnant with the promise of distant rain, stares down through vast, gaping holes in the roof, illuminating dust motes dancing in the cold currents of air that flow relentlessly through the hollowed-out structure. The wind is a constant, mournful presence here, a wailing sigh that whistles through every broken pane, every empty doorway, every fractured archway. It sounds like 1,000 forgotten ghosts, lamenting their lost lives, whispering the unheeded stories of those who suffered and were silenced within these very walls. You feel it on your exposed skin, a constant, chilling reminder of vulnerability, of the relentless elements reclaiming what was built to contain and control. The bitter cold seeps into your very bones, a cold that feels familiar, almost ancient, connecting you intimately to the profound suffering that once filled these desolate corridors. Patches of tenacious ivy, thick and green, claw their way defiantly up the crumbling stone, asserting life where only ruin remains, a stark, beautiful symbol of persistent growth against overwhelming decay. Exposed, rusty iron fixtures jut out from the walls like broken teeth, remnants of forgotten mechanisms, their cold metal catching what little light penetrates the gloom. You run your gloved hand over a pockmarked damp wall, feeling the rough, cold stone, the subtle imperfections that speak of countless hands, countless years. It's a structure that, despite time and neglect, refused to disappear entirely, yet is utterly changed, its purpose long since abandoned. And you realize, with a shiver that has nothing to do with the physical cold, that even in utter ruin, the echoes of human pain can resonate with astonishing power, leaving an indelible, haunting mark on the very landscape. This place, now reclaimed by nature and decay, stubbornly refuses to let its stories be forgotten. How do we truly reckon with places where history and decay intertwine so deeply, creating a profound, tangible record of human anguish? The cold wind still whips through the broken panes of the ruined asylum, carrying the heavy scent of decay and damp earth, a constant reminder of time's relentless march. You navigate the treacherous, rubble-strewn floor, each crunch of debris underfoot echoing in the cavernous, desolate space. The sense of profound age of forgotten lives hangs heavy in the air, a silent, almost palpable presence. You venture deeper into the crumbling edifice, drawn by an unspoken curiosity, a need to connect with the echoes of those who came before. You push through a sagging, warped doorway, the rotten wood groaning in protest, revealing what must have once been an administrative office. The air here is drier, dustier, thick with the smell of old paper, stagnant and brittle. Shelves, long stripped bare, line the walls, and a heavy, dark wooden desk, scarred and battered, stands slumped in the center of the room, partially obscured by a pile of fallen plaster. Amongst the scattered debris on the desk's warped surface, you notice a thick, leather-bound book. It lies half open, its pages splayed, brittle and yellowed with age, miraculously preserved from the worst of the decay. A faint, almost ghost-like scent of iron gall ink, mixed with the musty aroma of ancient paper, rises from its pages, a familiar, chilling echo from another time. You approach it cautiously, a strange reverence taking hold, as if disturbing a sleeping secret. You reach out, your fingers now covered in dust, delicately touching the brittle page. The paper is rough, almost fragile, crumbling slightly at the edges. You lean closer, your eyes scanning the dense, handwritten script that fills the page, faded but still legible. It's a patient's ledger, a meticulous record of lives deemed mad, reduced to dates, symptoms, and diagnoses. Each entry is a condensed tragedy, a life compressed into a few neat lines, and then you see it. Your gaze falls upon a name scrawled in an elegant yet undeniably formal hand. It's a name that resonates with a strange, profound familiarity, even though you know it belongs to someone else long gone. The ink, once a vibrant black, has faded to a delicate sepia, almost dissolving into the yellowed paper, a poignant symbol of passing time and forgotten identities. You run your finger over the faint, looping letters, feeling the almost imperceptible texture of the dried ink, a ghostly imprint on the page. It's more than just a name. It's a fragment of a life, a whisper of a person who once walked these very halls, who felt the cold stone, endured the treatments, and gazed at the same bleak walls. This forgotten name, etched into this crumbling ledger, becomes a powerful, poignant echo, a final, tangible reminder of a human being, reduced to an entry in a book, yet stubbornly asserting their former existence. And you realize with a heavy heart that sometimes the true horror of history isn't just the pain endured, but the quiet, systematic erasure of identity, leaving only a faded, brittle name as a testament to a life lived, and ultimately forgotten. What does it mean to be remembered when your only record is an ink-stained ledger in a ruined asylum?